Hey, good afternoon. You're here one more time. This is Rob Chismark with Talk Cornhole. We're again here at Clay Chandler's house in Middleburg, Florida, man. Thanks, Clay. This place is awesome. I always want to give thanks to St. Michael Soldier. They're the ones who give me the opportunity to play cornhole as a professional and do this kind of stuff as well. The ACL with Stacy Moore, the ACL DN with Trey Ryder and Fred Bruchero. He's the guy who set me up with a bunch of equipment, and he said he'd help me at any given time. So if you found us on accident, stick around for a few minutes. If you found us on purpose, you're in for a treat. Today, with me, as you can see, sitting to my left, is a one half of the reigning Pro Doubles World Champion. It's Emery Parker. Emery, man, good to see you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for coming over to my house. I hope the security didn't give you too much trouble coming in the gates. They tend to be a little protective sometimes. So.
I tell you what, I heard the power went out earlier today, so when I dialed your number, I got voicemail.
Oh, coincidence.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about a lot of stuff. Getting to know Emery Parker, I want you to tell me what your background is, not just in cornhole, but in sports in general, life. Tell me what you did as a competitor before you played cornhole. Tell me what you did. What's your background?
So I spent the first 15 years of my life in Atlanta, growing up right outside of Atlanta in Powder Springs, Marietta area. Played all kinds of sports as a kid. You name it, I played it: baseball, basketball, football, hockey, tennis, a little bit of soccer. But I developed a love for competition at a young age, and it just grew from there. I tended to focus on baseball and basketball later in my career, and through the end of middle school to high school, became baseball. When I was 15, I was recruited to play baseball in high school in Tallahassee, so we picked up and moved there. My dad played football at Florida State, which is where he met my mother, and we grew up, loving the Seminoles, traveling all over to watch the Noles. And it was my dream to go to Florida State one day, so I knew by moving to Florida it would make it much easier having to play in state as opposed to out-of-state tuition. And we picked up and moved, and it was a decision that I think both me and my family don't have any regrets about at all. But yeah, I played some junior college baseball, and then went to Florida State and finished up school, and then I found cornhole.
You found cornhole. How's it been since then? I mean, tell me what you've done. You told me you came across cornhole. How long have you been doing cornhole? How long has that been in your life?
Competitively, I've been doing it about 6 years. I originally found out about the game when I was 13 or so. We were on a trip to watch the Noles play up in South Bend, Indiana against Notre Dame. And we were tailgating, and I saw this game that these frat boys were playing next to us. And I went over there and tried it out. Loved it, with my sports background, I instantly was drawn to it, and I think I was somewhat decent for someone picking up the bag for the first time at the age of 13. But we went home after beating the Irish 37-0. It was their worst home defeat in history. And told my dad we need to make a set of boards, and they built me a set of boards, and we, took them to tailgates from there until I got competitive with cornhole and actually had some non-plywood boards to bring to tailgates. But yeah, so I found out about it then and played it recreationally, I would say, for 12 years. And then after a couple years out of school, I moved to South Florida, and I was looking for different leagues to join, with a baseball, basketball, etc. background. was looking for different leagues to join to meet people because I didn't know a ton of people down there. I moved down there for a job, and I ran across this cornhole league that happened to run on Tuesday nights, and I gave a call to the number, which happened to be David Streaker. I said, "Hey, y'all still doing this?" Because I didn't know how outdated it was. And, he said, "Yeah, come on out. We'd love to have you." And I went on out. There was at a bowling alley in Boynton Beach, and met Davis. Met the part of the South Florida crew down there, and I ended up getting second in that tournament. I didn't know what to expect going into it because, obviously I'd never played competitively. I didn't know anything about competitive cornhole at that time, so I went out there. I'm guessing I don't remember who my partner was, but I'm guessing I drew well that night, and ended up getting second for my first time out. And 2 months later, I was living with Davis, and the rest is history. I was practicing every day and traveling all over to tournaments. So
That was leading me to my next question, because you and I, we know each other personally. We get to spend some time together on a weekly, daily basis. So that was going to lead me right into I was hoping that you would mention Rosie and Davis throughout this. So tell me a little bit about your experiences with my business partner in Boardman Cornhole. Tell me some of those years together with Davis and Rosie.
Well, a lot of our most memorable experiences start with me being a little too inebriated, but we've had a lot of great times together, and they're two of the most genuine and nice people that I've ever met. And they did a lot for me, After knowing a guy for 2 months, how do you let him just move into your house? But obviously, maybe there was something that, they saw in me or trusted in me to allow that to happen. But they let me move in, and I lived with them for 2.5 years, something like that. And Davis is one of my closest friends. Rosie, I love to death. I love her whole family. Davis is as well. But yeah, Davis and Rosie are a big reason as to why I got into the game. Davis was competitive like I was, and we'd sit out back, on nights and just go at each other. And I was the new kid on the block, because I had just moved there, and he'd been obviously playing cornhole much longer than I had. So everyone likes to beat up on that guy, and I took my fair share of ass whoopings, that's for sure. But you could tell that I loved it, and that I was a good person, and that's why they let me stay around as long as they did. And it just kept growing and growing. Next thing I knew, I was traveling, for tournaments in Florida, and then eventually across the country.
Good. That brings us to yet another segue perfectly. Tell me something. Tell me any of your sponsors that you'd like to thank for helping you do that.
Well, the sponsor that I have right now is St. Pete Cornhole. I'd like to thank John Pertow for everything that he does. He's done a lot for me and my new partner, Scott Schultz. Helped us a lot throughout this season.
This guy's amazing.
And it would not be possible without him. He does great work down there, from merchandise, shirts, hats, cups, any kind of apparel you want, to doors. I mean, he does it all. He's the man down there. So, and not to mention, he runs one of the better tournaments in the country, in my opinion. He does a great job running tournaments. So if you're ever in that area, be sure to check out St. Pete Cornhole. They've got events going all the time. So
before we get into the meat and potatoes, is there anything personal that you want to talk about?
Many of you know me and Colleen have been together a while, and we are excited to announce that we are having a kid. And we're going to take photos later today, which I got this hat for, the Dad Life hat. So, we're very excited and hoping the best.
Congratulations, man. That is exciting, man. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Might have another champion with all these new kids, these younger kids going at it. We might have our next generation of cornhole pros.
We will. It'll be him and Mason Streaker.
That's going to be awesome. So as we get moving into the new season, tell me how it feels to be a reigning world champion, is what you like to call it. I like to call it a pro doubles champion at the world championship.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Hisner likes to call it something different. But no, it's great. I mean, last season was awesome. I wouldn't change anything about it. Matthew and I went into the year, as a little bit of an underdog. Trey put out his picks like he does for every event, and obviously we weren't listed. Who were we? I was a guy that was 6 months out of spending 2 years on an island in the Cayman Islands, and
Best player there for 2 years, though.
yeah, it was fun being the best player in the country that I was living in. I set up boards on the beach, and people walked by. What's that? But so there wasn't much to play down there. I had my boards, thanks to you, and I practiced. But outside of that, man, I fished a lot. I had a boat down there, and I still have it down there. My father lives down there, and I visit as much as I can. It's a cool out. But back to your question, last season was awesome. Me and Matthew, we weren't expected to do much, and right out of the gate, the first national, we proved people wrong. And when we decided to become partners, when I moved back in the country, I knew who Matthew was, obviously from all of my Florida travels and playing with all the different groups in Florida. I was part of the South Florida Cornhole group, but you have Orlando and Tampa and Jacksonville, etc. Fort Myers, and we all get together. On probably once a month. There's some kind of big tournament that everyone goes to. But I knew who Matthew was. He was a really young kid. I probably met him at the age of 14 or 15, and you could tell that this kid was going to be good. And I happened to come back off the island for the first national that ACL had at the minor league complex down in Florida, and I ran into him, and he was shooting well. He was shooting really well. So when I came back, kind of, that was amongst the reasons that I came back to the States. Was I missed cornhole, and it was impossible to do living down there, not being able to play regularly against competition. So I came back. I had him in my sights to play with, and I talked to him, and he decided that it was a go. And but when we did that, we wanted to do it the right way. We started practicing together every day. We got to know one another on a personal level. Developed that chemistry that I think teams need to be successful on the biggest stage. And we came out of the gate and made ESPN. Ultimately lost in a tough game to Derek and Jordan, but we continued it on all season. I don't think there was anybody that was on ESPN more than us. We were always there, and ultimately we figured out a way to finally finish one at the World Championships. And it's good to know that we accomplished that, but it does kind of stink that we're not able to defend it.
That leads me to yet another question. Do you feel disrespected? Do you have a chip on your shoulder from the off-season experiences? The only thing I can call it is the off-season experience. Do you feel any disrespect, any chip? Is there any animosity that's been built? Do you guys even talk? You got to know each other on a personal level. Do you guys even talk anymore the way you used to? Or, tell me how that's gone.
Yeah, we talk. Matthew's he's a great kid. He made his decision, and that's not for me to judge, really. Even though I may or may not disagree with it, I'm not going to get into the specifics about anything that happened. But if you had told me going into last season that me and Matthew would win the World Championship and we wouldn't be partners again, I wouldn't change it. I would still do it because it was that much fun, and I just love competing at the highest level, and we got to do that, and ultimately we were successful at it. I wouldn't say I have a chip on my shoulder. I mean, Matthew decided to play with a guy that I respect the hell out of. I mean, Noah Wooten he's my boy for one, and two, in my opinion, he's one of the top 5 players in the country. That guy he's stupid with a bag in his hand, you know. Do I think me and Matthew are a better team? Yes. I think there are intangible things there that they just don't come that easy in cornhole with a team. You know, you see a lot of superstar kids pair up and think they're just going to go win everything, and it's not that easy, man. There's a reason that the guys win as much as they do, and you know, Ryan and Isidro win like they do, and it's just tough to come by. You know, Philip Hayden and Damon Dennis. I mean, there's not a lot of it, but there are teams out there that have that that sense of
It's almost a sixth sense, you know, something where you don't even have to communicate, and you can communicate.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you guys toward the end of the season were getting that way. There's no doubt about it. So that's one of the reasons why I asked that question, to see what it was like. And I appreciate the answer, and I appreciate you not getting into the specifics. But now it's time to get into some things more specific. You mentioned your new partner, Scott, a little earlier. That chemistry thing is something that Scott believes in totally. Like we've had past conversations, you and me, where one time you left to go play with somebody else, and he said, you know, it takes over a year to get the right chemistry with a partner.
Yeah.
So what I want to know about that is just tell me about your most recent results with Scott, and tell me what you see in the immediate future and maybe in the future as a whole.
Well, Scott and I we've been playing together, not necessarily as partners, but together in cornhole for a while. He was a part of the group down there when I moved to South Florida. That's when I originally met him, and he's always thought he was better than me, and he never has been. And
you want to tell us about the big night in the backyard, or you want to leave that out?
No,
That's a great story.
We'll get into that.
You don't have to give figures, but you can tell me how many times you
took
beat
his
him.
car from him. Okay? No, but Scott is he's a good friend of mine, and he's a good cornhole player, and I enjoy playing with him. You know, we don't get to play as much together now because I live in Jacksonville, but and obviously this has just been a weird season, man. This coronavirus and everything going on. You know, there's just not all these tournaments for you to travel and go to. So we did the first national together. We didn't do great. I think we went 2-2 or something like that. And but it was the first time that we actually had thrown together in I don't know how many years, but a long time. And we didn't meet our expectations, but I think we could still have a good season, depending on if we're able to have a season. So we'll see.
What about the future past the season? Is there have there been any talks? Did you sign on for 2 years? Anything cool like that? Anything?
No, I didn't sign Scott Schultz's contract. Okay.
I know he put one out there.
Yeah. No, it is what it is. You know, this cornhole world, like I was leading to earlier when I couldn't think of the word I wanted to use, but it's rare that you find teams with a sense of loyalty to one another. Mm-hmm. You know, guys are just so willing to uproot and change partners like it's nothing, and that's perfectly fine. It's not the way I like to really do business. I'd rather just have my guy and know that whatever tournament I go to, I like my chances. You know, obviously you're not always going to win, but who knows what next year's going to bring, or the rest of this year for that matter. So we'll see.
Here's something a little cool. you're not only a champion on the boards, right? But you're a guy that a lot of other people come to hand you their bag and break it in for them. Can you share any of those tactics or methods that you do? And do you think that those tactics and methods that you use create any kind of advantage?
You're gonna be like the like Howard Cosell was to Ali, or Johnny Miller was to the Boston sports media. You're just gonna be that guy that goes in and asks the tough questions, and that fits you. Having worked in the media for 5 years like I did, that's not an easy thing to do. And I've interviewed some pretty big people like Coach K and on down the list. But that's gonna be you, and that fits you.
Thanks.
Anyway, back to your question. When you find something that works, I was into some things for a while where you have to beat the odds. And, I had my models that I built in Excel, and as do a lot of people out there in Vegas. And when you find something that works, you don't share it. So I do have my methods. I've heard of so many crazy things that people do to their bags, from hanging them upside down on clothing lines and soaking them in fabric softener, etc. I have the things that I do, and I like it. I don't think it creates an advantage, though. In my opinion, it's really just to break the bag in.
To me, that's a good answer. I do want to talk about some other advantages, and you and me, we've talked about a bunch of stuff. I had April on here last week. We talked about some things, some reasons why she feels like women can't finish. I want to ask you, what do you use to stay focused all day? What do you know of anything else that other people use to stay focused without mentioning names, getting too crazy? Yeah. And are there things that maybe should or shouldn't be allowed in this game to keep that focus?
Well, obviously alcohol is a big one for a lot of people, as myself.
What's your alcohol of choice?
Appleton. Yeah.
You drink gallons of that, don't you?
When I moved to the island, I was a whiskey drinker, and whiskey's imported there, so there's a tax on it. And I just wasn't willing to pay those prices, so I've had to find some kind of local, drink to drink down there. And my dad drank Appleton, so I tried it out, and it's not bad. And, the rest is history. Me and Appleton are forever now. So, but people use a lot of things. Some people like some THC in their body, which I don't have any problem with. For the most part, I would say the majority of players that play on ESPN or at that level, whether they're on ESPN or not, indulge in alcohol. It takes that edge off. And I think it would be interesting if there was some kind of governing body that, you look at other sports, and we're not talking about the mainstream sports, baseball, basketball, football, but look at like bowling. What are their rules on alcohol? Do you know?
I do not.
Well, it's not allowed. Darts, it's the same thing. I think it would definitely change things if alcohol, obviously, with the laws on weed, it's kind of a tricky situation as to where it would and wouldn't be allowed. But it's an interesting discussion. With it coming to the Olympics like it's supposed to be, I would imagine that USADA is still going to test a cornhole player like they are a skier or a, someone doing any other sport. So it will be completely different. We'll see. I don't know. It would be a different game though. You'd see a lot of players' games change if you were not allowed to use certain substances.
That's crazy. I know we've talked about it a lot, and that we all do. I love alcohol. I don't know that I use it to stay focused, or I just drink a lot when I'm playing cornhole because of where the game originated. Because it originated in the backyard at a barbecue, I was already intoxicated when I started playing the game. So I just feel like it kind of goes hand in hand. But as we do get into that Olympic setting, there is a chance that none of that is going to be available because there are some countries that don't even, some religions, some countries, some places they don't even have it. It's completely forbidden. So, and then on top of that, with THC, I know that's a reason to be suspended. So it'll be crazy. The shape of the team may change that America can put forward because of those reasons. So I think that's
if that were to happen, I'd just make it a team of all 18 to 19-year-olds that haven't gotten involved in playing cornhole while drinking or partaking in any other.
It's interesting. I can't wait to see how that works out. Moving along, we talked about how you like to break in bags. Do you have a favorite bag, because you're not really bound by any bag sponsor right now? Do you have a favorite bag? Do you have 5 favorite bags? Tell me what your favorite bag is. Tell me why. Tell me why not.
My favorite bag, the bag that I use the most when I need something that I can rely upon, is probably the Game Changer. Just because that's what Matthew and I threw. That's all we threw. Heck, I think we put that bag on ESPN more than anyone else did, whether we were sponsored by All Cornhole or not. I think we had something to do with that bag being put on the map. Anyway, I just know that bag so well. I know its kicks. I know what I can do and what I can't do with it because I just threw it thousands and thousands of times last year. And after that, though, I think Ultra puts out a good bag, and the Viper, the Widow is. The two sides aren't different enough, in my opinion. There's not much of a change between the stick and the slick on those bags.
On the Widow,
yeah. The Viper's a great bag, though. I'd probably put that at 2. Right behind it is probably, I love the Rug Burn, which y'all make. The Game Changer Slick and the Carpet Stick. The Reynolds Pro Advantage I like also. It's kind of similar with a little bit of a different slick. After that, I don't know. I'll probably stop at 4 just because I don't throw that many other bags. I've thrown some of the razors like the Mohawk. It's a pretty solid bag. Reynolds has the Victory and the I think it's the Excel that I have. They're both pretty solid bags, but I don't know, man. There's a lot of bags out there, and I tend to pick just like a couple that I can, maybe 2, maybe 3 that I can pull out in certain conditions. Living down here in Florida, it's really humid, and so I have my 3 bags that I typically use. If it's slick, I'll pull this out. If it's sticky, I'll pull this out. If it's in between, I might have another bag that I use. But for the most part, I typically just stick to, 3 bags or so.
Here's something that I didn't prepare you for. Last season, you had some very incredible highlights from some of the games that you played in that you got on ESPN. Some that you weren't on ESPN. What was your favorite? What's your proudest highlight that you were involved in? What was your favorite one?
Well, the one that I was most proud of was obviously winning is the thing that I care about the most. So my proudest moment is when Matthew Morton missed that shot.
The camcorder shot?
Yeah, we won the world championship.
Aside from that, though, not just the world championship. I mean, your individual highlights, like the 3 airmails over the top. I mean, that kind of stuff. What was the highlight that you can remember that's vivid? That's what you see yourself as.
It would probably be the. I think we were down 8-3 or 9-3 to Damon and Phillip. It was our first time on ESPN at the first national. Like I said earlier, we weren't expected to do much. We were this team out of nowhere type things, and we were down. Damon had a round that is very uncharacteristic of himself, and I took advantage. I was comfortable shooting my airmail. It's something that, well, we, both Matthew and I, lived and died by, but I was comfortable shooting it, and I shot 3 in a row, and we got I think it was an 8 on Damon Dennis, which doesn't happen very often, and it gave us the lead, and it springboarded us to winning that match, and ultimately coming up 2 points short in the championship to DK and Jordan, but that was a pretty big moment. It turned around that game, and I think it really had an effect on how our season went from there on out.
The Pro Invitational was a little bit of a different format, where it went to a round format.
Yeah.
Where most of the national finishes were all, yes, they were single elimination because you won your bracket, but you got to go to 21.
Right.
Do you have a favorite? Is there what do you like about doing rounds as opposed to what you like going to 21?
I don't like rounds at all. I get it from the ACL's perspective that it may be it's something easier to broadcast, and you don't have games running for 40 minutes long because certain players want to take their allotted time between each shot and slow the game down and take timeouts and etc. But it's just not how you play the game. Like when you go to tournaments, cash tournaments, whatever, you play the game to 21. So you don't go to like practice sessions and only play 10 rounds. Or it's a change of mentality when you play in 10 or 12 rounds. And I'm pretty sure we only played 10 in the Pro Invitational, did we?
Yeah.
So it's a short game, and in our first Pro Invitational game, I think I gave up an 8 or a 9 to DK in the first round, and I remember Matthew saying, "It's all right, buddy. If you're gonna give up an 8, now's the time to give up an 8." And I was like, "Okay, all right, I get it." But we came back, But if you don't start out well, it is very difficult. You start reaching for things and trying to get points when maybe you should just take the points that you are going to get, and it's just a completely different game when you're playing the rounds versus the overall score. So I tend to favor the way the game should be played, in my opinion, which is 221 and not the rounds.
You had a chance to travel the country. You've gone to many events that are annual and recurring. What is your favorite recurring event that you've been able to go to, if there is one?
Probably Spencer's.
I love Spencer's.
It's a great time. It really is. They do a great job out there. And it's something that you know, you go to these big ACL tournaments, you see everybody. When you go out there, you know, there's a lot of those teams that aren't there. You know, there's only maybe 20 to 30 of them, and there's 300 something teams out there. And it's just cool to meet people not only from out there locally in California, but from Arizona and other parts of the country out there out west. That it's not as easy for them to travel to, you know, some relatively big cash tournament in, you know, Florida or South Carolina or Tennessee or Georgia. So, you know, there's a lot of people that, you know, don't get to meet them, but I just love going out there. They're very hospitable. They do a great job. It's just a blast. And obviously, you know, if you don't grow up on the West Coast, going to California is just, you know, a cool thing to do.
It might even be
And
what
it's
some
beautiful.
people call a bucket. You know,
It's beautiful, yeah. I mean, the mountains, and it's gorgeous scenery out there for sure. It's a good time. Not to mention they have great fish tacos.
best in the world, man.
Yeah.
John would appreciate that for sure. So tell me, if you and me, we've played. I've only been in the game since 2015, but I met you shortly thereafter getting in. We've been to a lot of events together. Davis, April, and I. We direct events. You've been there. You've helped. You've seen it. You've seen good events. You've seen bad events. How would you create the perfect event?
The perfect event. Well, there would be $1 million on the line, and I think the key component to running a perfect event is that in itself is the running of the event. I think you go to a lot of tournaments and they're just not run efficiently. There's a lot of waiting around, and you don't know when you're going to be up next. There's no monitors that show you a bracket, and that's something that I know Davis does, and I think it's a big help. Obviously now you have the digital stuff where you get sent a text, and that helps as far as knowing where you're at in the bracket. But the perfect event, I don't know, that's tough. I have food trucks everywhere, and 500 plus teams with a lot of money on the line, indoors somehow at the same time.
I like the outdoor aspect of it. I like the fact that it kind of evens the playing field when the wind blows 25 miles an hour.
A lot of those indoor players, they start complaining because they're outdoors, so you don't want to give them an excuse,
Maybe like championship arena is somewhat covered in a situation like this where the wind can't really right here at the house. So tell me, I want you to look into your crystal ball. I want you to tell me how you see this game progressing. I want you to tell me how you see the American Cornhole League progressing. And do you feel that being a professional cornhole player could at some point, and I want to know about it being in the near future in your career, being a way of life as opposed to a professional hobby?
So the ACL, I think the sky's the limit. I mean, it's progressed so rapidly. Who would have thought 3-4 years ago that it would be where it is now? I think as long as they keep relationships good with important people that they need to keep those relationships well with, I think the sky's the limit. And sponsorships, obviously, a big part of, like you said, becoming basically a job as opposed to a hobby is the money. Depending on who you are, there are players out there that it is their job right now. Younger generation that they don't have jobs, they don't really have bills or rent or a mortgage, a child to care for, so they were able to just survive, and you could even say thrive in some people's situations off the money that they make in cornhole. especially with these ghost tournaments, all these money, they just give their money away to no Wooten all
They
the
do.
time.
He just takes
It's
it.
crazy. Like, ghost 10 for 10. What are you, crazy?
I tell you, he told
beats
me.
the ghost 12 somehow.
He told me
Crazy.
the other day that he's entered. He's not. He said, I don't know the number of tournaments I've entered, but I'm 90%. I said, what do you mean 90%? He said, not cashing either. He said, I'm 90% winning all of the ghost tournaments that I've entered
No
since I've been
Wooten is
started.
thriving off this coronavirus.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
He's
He's
making
just
more money
living on
now,
his money.
and he's not even on unemployment. He's
Yeah,
doing it.
No, he's getting it. But no, I mean, it depends on the kind of life that you lead. But if you have a family and a mortgage and live what I call the typical American life for someone that's 25 to 35 years old and they're on, there has to be more money, at least from sponsors. I think a lot of the sponsors that people get, they don't get the money that they should be getting
The value.
compared to what it costs to get a 15-second ad on ESPN. You're getting 20 to 30 minutes of your logo right here uninterrupted on ESPN, and companies are getting it at a minute fraction of the cost, as opposed to it probably cost them $200,000 to get a 15-second ad on ESPN, and they're these companies are giving $2,000 or $4,000, whatever. I don't think there's anyone getting more than maybe $15,000 from sponsors in total. So I think you need to be smart and be able to somehow persuade these companies to give you more money and make them realize the value that they're getting, the audience that is tuning in. And the ACL does a great job in getting the money that they do, but yeah, I think that would need to be a little higher too. For someone to basically make $100,000 or $75,000 off of just playing cornhole after expenses and everything that it costs to play, because it's not a cheap game to play unless you win every tournament.
And that's the thing, because the way you're talking about each player being able to get that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes whether or not they win or lose, and that was the question. So building off of that, what Matthew Sorrells has been quoted as calling you a marketing genius. How can we build the value of a cornhole player to a company that either doesn't know cornhole or doesn't understand the value of just being on ESPN for 25 uninterrupted minutes? How do we build that value? Is there a way? Do you have any steps? Do you have any tips? What can we do?
I think you just need to get in front of the right people. A lot of people look at this game and they just laugh it off. You need to really get in front of them and show them numbers, audience, TV ratings, etc., and really get them to buy into it and the value that is being brought to their brand and or company.
And that's not the easiest thing to do, because we don't know all the catchphrases and all the good words to use to make them understand the buzzwords, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it's a little tough to come up with them because it's so new to all of us. And we don't even, to be the pioneering sport back to live competition as this quarantine has been winding down that's a humongous step. And I can't imagine what the value was there, I think it's awesome. And I like what the league's doing. I love the way it's progressing. So I just hope.
They've done a great job throughout it. What happened in Cleveland, it stinks, but it was completely out of their hands. The mayor of, I think it was Cuyahoga County or whatever, came in at the last second and kind of just said no, and that stinks. It gave them a bad look, but it was in no way, shape, or form in their hands. You know, they didn't have
Right.
any control over it, and they're trying to do the best with, you know, their restrictions as far as all this goes. So, you know, they have the poll online as far as what you think should be done with the money, etc. And you know, whatever they decide, they'll do the best thing. They'll make sure that the players have their fair share at that prize pool. You know, they'll do a good job. Stacy and Trey and Todd and everyone there, they do a great job. So I have no doubt that they'll make sure that the players are taken care of.
Your partner got a chance to go to the Pro Invitational qualifier. He chose to go with Noah, which wasn't any slight to what was going on with you. Just, I know that you didn't feel good about the restrictions. You felt like it might make things a little weird. But do you have any plans to attend any of the qualifiers that are coming up for us?
Well, they haven't released the other locations, but yeah, I would definitely like to go to a couple of them. Obviously, Houston is a little tough to go to.
And they're restricted with time there, so it's
Are they?
yeah. So they're going to go straight into the single elimination in Houston. So it's going to be that's a tough
For doubles and singles? Or?
yeah for everything because they got to be ready by 11 local time to go live at 12 Eastern with the
Right.
finals basically for both tournaments. They got a 4-hour time slot. So, but it's really cool that I mean a 4-hour time slot live yet again,
Yeah.
back-to-back weeks. It's a great look for the league, and I can't wait for it.
It's an easy chance to get on ESPN if you're someone that hasn't been able to make it that far and you live, you know, relatively close, or you're just willing to spend the amount of money that it takes to go there. It's an easy chance to get on the ESPN, you know, get some FaceTime, and it gives that player, you know, an easy way to present to sponsors. You know, this is the value that you're getting, but I'm gonna try to make do. We'll see. Last week it was Mother's Day. My mom came in town. Me and my girlfriend Colleen, we just moved houses, and so I had a honey-do list around the house. And Mom was coming to town, so I told Scott to said, ask Noah, he'll play with you. I'm sure he will. And he did.
I'm sure he will. Was your actual comment?
No, no. His comment was, I don't know if Noah will play with me. I said, yeah, he probably won't. But you should ask him.
Hey, it worked out. They did well.
Yeah, they did.
Scott shot really
They
well.
did well until they got on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was fun to watch. I was there. It was awesome. I had a great time. The restrictions were a little bit different.
Yeah.
I don't think they were over crazy or anything, but it was definitely different. But
What kind of mask did you wear? Did you wear one of the ones that you made?
I did for the competition.
See,
Then afterwards, I put on that face shield, and that thing was awesome.
that's what Colleen said to me today. She said, if I was there, I would have been wearing that face shield.
It was
And
awesome.
I said, I agree, because I've had to wear that mask 2 or 3 times going into doctor's appointments for her. And then we went to Costco over the weekend, and somehow after 3 months, they've decided that you have to wear a mask to get into Costco now. And so I had to wear, but every time I wear a mask, it messed my beard up.
Oh, that's
And
important.
I can't-
That is
I
super.
can't stand it. Every time I was like, you know, bent all over, and I'm freaking out. I need to go get a shower and reshape it. But yeah, I don't like the mask thing. I would definitely have probably gone with the shield.
I thought, see, when I first got there and I saw the shield, I thought it was going to be more invasive than the mask, so I didn't even try it on.
Right.
Like I was like, no way. But I
Yeah.
grabbed 2 as a souvenir because they're logoed with they've got Stevie on them. So I was like, I gotta have these for a keepsake.
Yeah.
And after it was all over, I threw one of them on because I was tired of wearing a mask, and I was like, what an idiot! I should have been wearing this the whole
Right.
time because it was so awesome.
The mask
It's
didn't
far
mess your
enough
beard up?
away. Yeah, well, let's not talk about that. So
I
it
thought
was
your
so
beard
far away.
Awful after wearing that mask. Yeah.
But it was that face shield was so far away from your face because of the way it's designed. It
Right.
didn't even make you hot. You know, it was awesome. And I got a few, and there may be some Boardman branded face shields for
Yeah,
people on the way to go to the next qualifier.
I saw DK talking about it in some video. He's like, please don't make fun of us because of these shields. But in reality, I think they made the best decision. Unless you have a fishing mask, like
like
I
them
think
sleeves.
Jamie was wearing.
Yeah.
You know, if you fish and you're used to wearing those, which I am, I don't think that would have any real effect. But those masks that wrap around your ears, it's just, I can't stand them.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And Scott was out there wearing a ninja one and made him look like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat.
It
Great
did.
look.
It was great for him.
He's going to present that to a sponsor and they're going to be like, we don't know that's you.
I mean, if that's what they're paying for is his face, they're overpaying.
Yeah.
Man, Emery, I want to thank you for your time, man. We talked about it for a few weeks and even a few months, really, about getting this thing together and being on a podcast. And I appreciate your time and your candidness. I want to thank you for being here with me and taking the time out of your day. And good luck on those pictures. I don't know. I mean, you might need to reshape that one more time. Well, maybe.
No,
Hey.
she'll make me look better though.
She will make you look way better. The focal point will change quickly.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I've been talking online on Talk Cornhole as well as the Boardman Facebook page and mine as well. If you guys want a little shout out, send me something. And Josh and Kylie Alford from the East Coast Beach Baggers were the first one to send me a piece of merchandise. And I told them, I said, man, I'm sorry, I don't wear pink, but I sure will show it to you and let you see the design. It's a beautiful trucker hat. It's a nice pink color. And what I'm actually going to do with this is I'm going to raffle this off at a tournament that I have coming up. And I'm going to take the proceeds and I'm going to donate it to some sort of something that uses pink as their color to represent them, a charity that uses pink for this one in this case. So I want to thank you guys, Kylie and Josh, for sending this to me. I appreciate it. Again, I don't wear pink, but here it is anyway, East Coast Beach Baggers. Again, I want to thank the ACL and ACL Digital Network for putting us out there, and Clay Chandler one more time. This has been Rob with Talk Cornhole. You got Rob. We'll see you next time.